Women with Wings features the stories of 33 Australian aviators who have led or continue to lead the way for female flyers. There at the launch of the exhibition at Newcastle Regional Museum was Nancy Bird, who helped blaze the trail in the 1930s. One of Australia's original female commercial pilots, Nancy was also the first to fly a medical service in outback New South Wales. She says it wasn't that hard for women to learn to fly in post-depression Australia.
They were so glad to have somebody who had money to pay for lessons that everybody was very nice to you. There were no jobs in aviation, so you weren't threatening anybody.
The exhibition features women who fly all types of aircraft, from those in the early days of aviation to helicopters and high-tech airliners. But to Nancy, there's no comparison. The modern women with wings have it much tougher today than she ever did.
There's so many more rules and regulations, you know. We just opened the throttle and went where we wanted to. Now you have to set out flight plans and follow certain routes, fly at different heights, all sorts of things.
Colin Robinson, NBN News.
This multimedia kit is a practical guide to identifying mental illness. It educates university lecturers on how to instruct their students, the teachers of tomorrow, on how to recognise secondary students who may be suffering from a psychological disorder.
Teachers who are key people in terms of being around young people, some of whom may be in need of assistance. But they need to be able to recognise that and to know what to do when they do recognise a young person.
Professionally, it's a major coup for the kit's creators, the Hunter Institute of Mental Health.
It was a tender that was put out to Australian researchers, and we were fortunate enough to win that particular tender.
Principal of the Newcastle School, Chris Urain, says the resource will not only equip new teachers with the ability to recognise mental illness, but refer students for help.
If we can save one student's life, it would be a very successful kit.
The kit is now being used in 50 different university campuses nationwide. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News. The Hunter property market is going through the roof. New figures indicate the median price for a Hunter home is now $189,000, up an annual 27.7%, while Newcastle alone has seen an incredible jump of 31.9%, well above Sydney's 22.8%. Darren Bender from the Real Estate Institute says local increases have been partly fuelled by hungry Sydney investors.
I suppose it would be fair to say for perhaps low-income earners and perhaps some first home buyers who were struggling financially to get into the marketplace, they'd be doing it a bit tough, and they're probably the people that are going to lose out.
The Institute concerned interest rates will again rise.
In a lot of ways, it's a shame to think that we're getting penalised because there are some sectors of the Sydney market that are overinflated.
The biggest increase was in Eastern Lake Macquarie, prices ballooning by 60%. Other hot property suburbs include those around Adamstown, Katara and Western Lake Macquarie. Homes in and around Lemon Tree Passage, Tanilba Bay and New Lambton have also seen strong growth. But even at the bottom end, prices are mind-boggling. A buyer recently paid $150,000 for this old war hut at Belmont North. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Today the bell tolled to mark a special occasion for one of the Hunter's oldest and smaller schools. The 15 students at Wollombi Public and their teacher joined by scores of former pupils and the community to celebrate the school's sesquicentenary. Few missing the chance to dress in period costume for the celebration.
Yeah, the parents were very keen for the students to dress up, the teachers, and a lot of the parents dressed up as well.
The planting of a tree to honour Wollombi's oldest student, 96-year-old Mary Holding, was among the activities to mark the milestone. Memories and nostalgia took over the classroom, memorabilia from across those 150 years taking precedence over today's technology. Even though she probably wasn't aware, a prospective student was given a preliminary classroom tour, while former pupils reminisced about their alma mater. One certainty for Wollombi Public School is that it has a future.
Yes, we're definitely in a growth spurt. We have 15 pupils at the moment and we have 4 potential enrolments for next year, so we should be close to 20.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Mums and dads, boys and girls. Further ado, I'm going to hand over to
Get your mum and dad to help you with the book. Amazing book, and as I said, I'm sure all parents want to see the best for their children, and
we should be able to help them. So once again, I'd like to thank.
You going all right?
Good, thanks, mate.
So who's this one to? To Lewis. Lewis?
No.
Lewis is,
The Dowling General Store in Dungog has had a lot of customers in the 5.5 years that the family's owned it, but never anyone like this. Just after 8 on Saturday night, an Australian icon climbed the front steps and decided to make himself at home, much to the amazement of owner Carolyn and other shoppers.
I've never seen a koala actually in the town before, and it just walked straight up the steps and walked straight into the shop. Walked around the shop for a little while and then climbed up on the bread.
Not only did the real-life Blinky Bill climb the bread rack, but he also picked out a loaf, perhaps for a midnight snack. Once comfortable, the koala calmly sat there for more than an hour, observing the growing number of observers. But despite news of the event spreading through Dungog, not everyone is convinced it's true.
A lot of people around the town are talking about it, but they also think that it never happened. These things don't happen here, but it did.
No one's sure why the koala paid the unexpected visit. Maybe it was to meet some chocolate-coated cousins, or a more scientific explanation could be because it's mating season, which prompts male koalas to wander. But he couldn't stay shop-bound forever, and after trying to shut the door on his potential captors and a minor tantrum, he was taken back to the bush by a local naturalist. Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
Gunter and I were up at
is our location here in the Hunter.
Now had their lives put on hold because of the mastery of Rio Tinto.
While firefighters secured the area around the post office, an estimated 80 km/h wind continued to buffet the building. At 2:30 this afternoon, wind blew this window into the shop. It came crashing in, forcing another section of glass to blow out. Luckily, staff and customers were at the other end of the building at the time. No one was injured. Meantime, at Mount Hutton, this empty hall looking a little vulnerable, with a snap power pole hanging precariously over it. The only thing preventing it from falling further, overhead power lines. Energy Australia workers then assessed the complicated job of first securing, then removing and replacing the pole. At Oakville Street, Edgeworth, this 10-metre tree was uprooted by the strong wind. The Colorbond fence stood no chance, and neither would have the adjoining home if it were not for a driveway in between. Colin Robinson, NBN News.
For some first-year teachers, relocating to work in a country school can come as a shock to the system.
When I went to Sydney Uni, we didn't really talk about country areas at all. Most people just went straight into teaching in Sydney.
The profession can be especially demanding in smaller schools, which may see teachers forced to take on extra responsibilities, such as composite classes.
Sometimes in our central schools, the new teachers go out to their first jobs being a year advisor or teaching year 11 and 12 in the same classroom, and of course there are enormous challenges for them there.
That's where a new pilot program can help. Run through the University of Newcastle, these first-year education students are being encouraged to think realistically about working in the bush.
I'd be quite comfortable to go to a city school or a country school.
It'd be a good challenge.
The program offers practical experience in schools as far west as Broken Hill, as well as support for first-year teachers.
So I think this program's been good because we're all sort of coming into it and not really knowing exactly what sort of country areas are like.
Around half of all education students are expected to spend their first years of teaching in country classrooms. So the program is aimed at making the job more appealing, ensuring teachers remain in the bush for longer. Program or no program, it seems some teachers are already adjusting to country life.
I've lived in Sydney for 2 years and I loved it, but I want to teach. I think my personal opinion is a different calibre of children in the city compared to country kids, and I do enjoy being in the country anyway, so I guess that helped make my decision.
Lyndall Derrig, NBN News.
"400 Australians lost their lives holding off the Japanese Imperial Army as it pushed down through Papua New Guinea, ever closer to Australia in 1942. The death toll from the Kokoda track would have been much worse if not for the fuzzy-haired locals who helped the Australian casualties reach medical help.
Not only did they serve on the Kokoda track carrying the supplies forward to our troops, but they very tenderly carried out our wounded people, and a lot of the people who survived the Kokoda campaign owe their life to the way that they were carried out to medical facilities, as there were none available on the track itself.
Today, 3 of the original PNG veterans were in Newcastle as part of a contingent taking part in Battle for Australia commemorations in Civic Park. The now annual ceremony remembers all the attacks that threatened Australian soil.
This commemorates the fact that the Australian mainland itself was threatened in 1942. So it's the actual battle for Australia involving the New Guinea campaigns, the bombing of Darwin, North Queensland, the attacks on Sydney and Newcastle. So it's really all about when the battle for Australia came to Australia itself rather than overseas countries.
Fuzzy Wuzzy stood on their mark, and they became excellent fighters themselves in many respects. And they also were a great help to wounded people, wounded soldiers or wounded airmen.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
If the Opals had any doubts about the level of support they'd receive in Newcastle, they were quickly dispelled today. 1,500 local school children raised the roof as Australia made a perfect start to its warm-up match, running away to an early 8-point lead. Brazil bounced back in the next two quarters, Janeth Arcane leading the way. But down by 5 with 3 minutes left, the Opals rallied. Lauren Jackson and Trish Fallon making it a 1-point ball game, the Brazilians swinging the advantage their way with 2 seconds to go.
It's the first time we've had our team as a full team together, so considering that, we're not, it's not nice to lose, but we did well considering it's the first time.
Fallon top scored for the Aussies with 16, but today was more about basketball than the match itself.
They don't have a basketball team here now like they had the Falcons before, and they haven't had a women's team, so it's a great opportunity for them to get to know us a bit better.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Oklahoma is a love story set during the great American land rushes of the late 19th century, when farmers were setting up ranches and denying the cowboys land to drive their cattle. Among the local faces in Opera Hunters production are Felicity Biggins playing Aunt Ella, Daniel Stoddart playing Curly, and Erin James as Laurie. The show runs for 3 weeks. Meantime, students from Sydney's Actors College of Theatre and Television are at Newcastle's Civic Theatre tonight for a special performance. The students are touring New South Wales and the ACT with a collection of short plays by Australian writer Tim Winton. The young, fresh-faced cast is expected to graduate from an advanced diploma course at the college. And Kurri Kurri High School is living up to its motto of courage and honour by staging a musical about Superman, the Man of Steel.
He's won titles with Lakes as both player and coach, but that doesn't mean Rip Taylor is satisfied by just reaching this year's decider. After guiding the Seagulls to a third straight grand final appearance, Taylor will move on next season.
As long as West read the script, the fairy tale might come true.
In his debut captain-coach season, West's Troy Fletcher has a different ending in mind.
We wouldn't mind raining on his parade. And we've got Tony Hutton back in the side, which has been a massive boost for our team this week as well.
While West welcome one back, Lakes miss Grant Coleman. His failed appeal leaving him suspended and sidelined for the biggest game of the year.
I'm disappointed more for the player than anything. I thought there was a fair precedent there, but I guess it's a little bit of the old boys club. The appeals board were looking after the judiciary.
If that helped fires Lakes up, West skipper Troy Fletcher fueled the Flames today.
He probably got his just desserts off the judiciary. It was a pretty bad shot, but yeah, mate, there's always plenty of spice in West Lakes games.
The Rosellas have all 3 grades in Sunday's matches, but it's the top grade that everyone will remember. Kick-off at the #1 sports ground at 3 o'clock. With the 2 lower grades winning the earlier matches, the scene was set for a West trifecta. It was Lakes that got the perfect start, with Ian Burke putting Craig Camorley over for a 6-0 lead. Burke kicking Lakes further ahead soon after. Full marks in defence for Paul Skovgaard, with Troy Miles on the end of a special. He had a hand in West's first points as well, but it was Troy Wright who finished off as the Rosellas got back within 2. The action continued quickly after the break, with Jason Allen making something out of nothing. Craig Camorley on the spot again to regain the Seagulls' 8-point buffer. Gavin Cook quickly returned serve, a powerful burst setting up Wayne March in the corner. His wing partner Trent Sorkeld then outpaced Lakes' defence for West to take a 16-14 lead. Ian Burke's boot drew Lakes level before the captain had another chance after the full-time siren to win the match. Luck always plays a part in big games, and West got the right bounce early in extra time. A field goal and another Sawkill try wrapped things up as West won all three grades. It was one of the best finishes in a local league grand final in recent memory. With scores locked 16-all at full-time, West got home in overtime with tries to Troy Wright and Trent Sawkill securing a nail-biting win.
You don't know what to expect. I've never played in the grand final before and, mate, I'm absolutely stoked.
5/8 Paul Skovgaard awarded the JJ Wilson Medal for Best Player, while Rep Player of the Year Ryan Dagwell also capped a fine season with an inspiring performance.
I've had a pretty good year, but it's just nice to top it off with a pretty good game in the grand final, so I'm wrapped.
Lakes left lamenting after missing some golden opportunities to win the game. Outgoing coach Rip Taylor remaining philosophical.
I've been lucky, I suppose. I've won a few and lost a few.
The entire Rosellas club look to be celebrating for a while yet. Black Diamond AFL minor premiers Cardiff have won their second chance match to reach the grand final after beating Killarney Vale. Brendan Wohl booted 4 and Paul Harrison landed 3 majors in a 16-point win to set up a showdown against Terrigal-Avoca. The Panthers enjoyed some early success as well, with David Hamilton winning the league's Best Player award yesterday. And in the Premier Hockey League, Phoenix North ensured it won the minor premiership undefeated, while wins also for Maitland, Tigers and South in the final round. The final series begins this weekend with the bottom 4 sides already enjoying the off-season.
In the 50s and 60s, only 5% of Australian children were grossly overweight. Now it's closer to 20%. A new obese generation facing a future of health problems.
What we haven't seen yet, and what is surely going to follow, is an epidemic of early heart disease. People will really be screaming when we've got people in their 30s and 40s having heart attacks.
Not to mention social outcomes.
From the studies that have been done, girls who are overweight as adolescents are much less likely to be married, more likely to be living below the poverty line, and more likely to be unemployed.
Dr. Claire Collins, a lecturer in nutrition and dietetics, will soon embark on a 2-year study involving 1,000 young people in the Hunter. The results will be used for a national strategy for combating obesity. For parents, a good start is admitting their child is overweight and often addressing their own bad food habits.
Some of the most important things they can do is get them to eat more vegetables and fruit, and that means for themselves eating more vegetables and fruit. They need to turn off the television, they need to get the kids up and moving.
Health authorities also want tax rebates for sport joining fees or related activities. The School Canteen Association wants to remove all soft drink vending machines from high schools. An even more extreme call is for the banning of food advertisements during children's viewing hours. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Crown Street in Newcastle has been chosen to become a new central meeting and hangout point for the city's youth. The organisation, known as Youth with a Mission, are developing the concept and have already opened their own retail shop. It's hoped more will follow, taking young people out of the suburbs and luring them back into the CBD so they can access retail outlets and services.
But it'd be a positive place. It's not a negative place of, drugs or other negative overspill. Where youth are seen in a very positive light within the city.
The idea was to find a street in Newcastle which had a European feel, where young people would feel comfortable. There are now plans to hold events in and around the street where parents know their kids will be safe.
It's a cultured precinct where young people can come. Might be for some the only time in the week where they feel real dignified and they feel great about themselves. So they feel cool. There's people there looking after them.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
"24-year-old Christopher Pacey has been a uni student, an office clerk and a security guard. Today he joined 61 others, sworn in as a Hunter-based probationary officer. A little later than his peers, but for a good reason.
I had a red provisional driver's licence, and you're not allowed to attest until you get your green provisional driver's licence. So after I got it, I then had to be sworn in, so today was the day.
Maitland receives 14 recruits, Lake Macquarie 14, Waratah 15, Newcastle 7 and 8 are posted throughout the Upper Hunter in an effort to increase police presence on the streets. And there's more promise later in the year after the next class graduates from Goulburn.
I would imagine that it'll be similar numbers to this, and that will be dealing with the issue of long-term sick leave in our police service.
The softer side of police work was evident at Singleton today thanks to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. 13-month-old Jacob Moore has a rare disease that has left him with little sight in his left eye and a tumour behind his right. This afternoon, Jacob's life was made a little brighter after a delivery of toys. But while he was grateful, it seemed he had his sights set on a scaled-up Matchbox car.
It's a ritual Jimmy Woodward has played out every day since 1958. He came to stockbroking late in life when he was 40, but hasn't looked back.
But I'll give you a tip.
Oh, yes?
Be kind to your mother.
At 85, Jim, originally from Guyra, has seen many changes in stockbroking, citing the use of computers and the internet as the greatest development in his profession. He says he loves his job and at this stage has no intentions of selling up, but there's another reason why he's staying in the game.
At one stage there down in Melbourne, there was an old fella in a stockbroking office and he was over 90, so I don't know whether I can catch up with him, but all I know is my grandmother ran a dairy till she was 84, and I've beaten her now by a year anyway.
He believes it's important that people his age keep active if they want to live long lives, adding that it doesn't matter if it's a hobby, sport or career, as long as it's something to keep the mind sharp.
I want anything at all that keeps you on the jog, I think, is a good thing with the mind, and it's a lot better than sitting on the front veranda just counting the cars going by.
And for the record, apart from being nice to your mother, Jim likes industrial stocks. Tomorrow night we'll meet a man who never misses a chance for a chinwag with his mates across Australia. Every morning before 6:30, Neville Johnson rises for another day at work. But like much of the country, his property is also feeling the effects of drought. He's been here for more than 60 years, and although he's seen it drier, he says this current drought could be one of the worst.
We're heading towards a disastrous drought because if we don't get rain in the spring or summer, well, it'll be a catastrophe, really, I believe.
For much of his life on the land, Neville was a dairy farmer, but he now helps his son produce more than 25,000 bales of feed a year for the region's livestock. And despite being 81, he has no plans to slow down and retire.
I'll remain here whilst ever I'm breathing, actually.
It's that attitude that has helped the likes of Neville, Joe the woodturner, ham radio enthusiast Tom, and evergreen stockbroker Jim keep young at heart. And it's not something only an exclusive few have the ability to do.
Remain as active as you can and still retain your interest in life generally. not only your property or whatever it may be, but also your family.
The Great China Circus only tours Australia every 3 years, but never ceases to amaze. Entertaining some of Australia's youngest budding gymnasts today, it's later this year that several of our Olympians will join them in a unique production. Along with the circus, our gymnasts will get the chance to show their wares in a performance rather than competition.
There are strict rules and regulations within the competition arena, and so therefore I don't think the public get to see quite as much as they should. They only see a routine, a very short routine, whereas this is a 2-hour show.
Olympic silver medalist Jai Wallace headlines the Australians involved in a show already scheduled for Sydney, Melbourne and Canberra, while Newcastle gets its chance in November.
The thrills of martial arts, tumbling, aerobics, it'll be a fantastic atmosphere.
Can Cardiff beat Terrigal and end their Black Diamond Grand Final hoodoo along with it tomorrow? That's the question ahead of the local league's biggest game of the year after the Hawks have failed in the past 2 deciders.
Yeah, quietly confident, but in the same time there's always that element of doubt that they've beaten us before, so as confident as a coach can be.
The Panthers have a 2-1 record against Cardiff this season, including a major semi-final win. Whatever way you look at it, the NRMA Cup was a big hit in its first season, and things have only grown. From October 13, 112 teams from across the state and the ACT will begin the race for a share of the $40,000 on offer in the Cup and Plate divisions.
I think it's very important to make sure that in New South Wales we maintain the standard and improve the standard of country cricket. There's no secret that a lot of very good country cricketers have made it through to represent Australia.
Originally from Wagga, the former Aussie captain is a big favourite of the competition. So too is Todd Campbell. He skippered Newcastle club side Hamilton Wickham to the first ever title win, and successive cups are now on the agenda.
As in all sports, the premiers are the ones you want to knock off. So, you know, we've got the title, and it's up to our club and our team to maybe perform a little bit better and try and win it again.
Interestingly, the title holders are actually seated third in their group. The final series will again be held in the Hunter Valley at Singleton and Maitland, with the grand final scheduled for the Australia Day long weekend. While in the squad, John Morris watched Newcastle's grand final win last year from the stands, but wants to end his days in the red and blue jumper playing in a premiership winning team. Parramatta bound next season, the young utility player has found himself now filling the shoes of the world's best player in do-or-die football.
In reality, you know, it's probably not going to happen. You're not going to perform as well as Joey does, but you can only play to your best ability, and that's what I intend on doing.
In fact, the entire side is. Tired of hearing they can't win without Andrew Johns, the team wants to prove a point.
It's a bit embarrassing sometimes that, you know, when Joey's out, they write the whole team off, and you know, with all due respect to Joey, I think that we've got a lot of quality players on our side, and you know, we've all got to put in that bit extra on the weekend.
But given the recent record, playing without Johns isn't good. Newcastle winning just 3 of 11 games without him in the last 2 years.
When we're called upon to do a job like this, and for each other and for the footy team itself, it's an inspirational time for us, and we've got to really play well.
Punters have already deserted the Johnsless Knights, with Newcastle blowing to rank outsiders to defend their title. Despite the injury-wrecked pre-season, big things are expected from United. After going within a game of the grand final last season, the goals this year are simple: go one better. A number of new recruits get their first chance tonight to shine, including Ryan and Adam Griffith, who join brother Joel at the club. Cleared of a foot injury, Joel will start with Adam, but is unlikely to play the entire 90 minutes. If Ryan can make it off the bench in time, it's thought that it would be the first time three brothers have played in the one NSL match in the same side. As for South Melbourne, the once glamour team of the NSL are rank outsiders in tonight's season opener. A milestone meeting for the Newcastle Harness Racing Club tomorrow night, with the club celebrating 75 years to the day, the first ever evening race meeting in the city. That original meeting was run on the 21st of September in 1927 on an old site in Hamilton. And it's qualifying semi-final time in the Premier Hockey League, with the winner of each match at the weekend to reach the grand final. South and West play tomorrow, while on Sunday the entrants will fly the Central Coast flag against Phoenix North. It wasn't all that long ago Sean Rudder was dropped from the starting side. At the time, even he agreed with the coach and says it was the perfect tonic to get him back on track.
Probably just the thing I needed, because I've really ripped in over the last couple of months, and I think I'm probably as fit now as I've ever been, and it's just come at the right time of the year. Yeah.
He knows it'll take more than fitness to get the better of Brad Fittler. It's more a matter of sticking to a simple sounding game plan.
I think if we get up in his face and, put some tough defence on early, maybe we can rattle his cage a bit.
The Roosters are expecting that and much more, with none in their camp buying into the popular theory that Newcastle can't win without Andrew Johns.
Yeah, of course they can. I mean, what do you got? Perry, Badiris, Parsons, Kennedy, Simpson, Peden, Tahu, Gidley. I mean, we're not about to feel sorry for him, I don't think.
Phil Gould was in Newcastle to assist a fundraiser for the Waratah Mayfield Club. After financial problems forced the local club to sit out of the competition during its 75th year, the Cheetahs are now set to return next season.
From our grand final side in 2000, we've re-signed Phil Morgan, and I virtually think Aaron Lawrence will sign in the next couple of days. And mate, we're looking at speaking of players like Steve Story, Stuart Collins, Andrew Taylor, players that have been at the club before.
With a new committee and sponsors, the famous Cheetahs look destined to live for a long time yet.
It's a bitter blow for parents, staff and children at the Glencare Special Needs Centre, the state's only before and after school carer integrating disabled and mainstream students. But this Friday, the federally funded centre will be forced to close. After 37 years with GIO, the company has this year refused to reinsure the charity.
I can't believe it's happening. I just find it incredible that someone can dump you so quickly.
Most of the parents who use the centre are either struggling or single mums. They fear they will have to quit their jobs to care for their kids.
I do have no family or friends that I can rely on, so this is my only centre that I can bring my daughter to.
It's not like you can just take your kids and find a babysitter for them. They have special needs. They really need to have that centre.
Glencare first learnt of GIO's intentions in a letter last month. The only explanation in that letter was to blame changing underwriting guidelines. But when the charity group phoned GIO to seek further details, they were told the insurer was no longer covering childcare centres. A spokesperson for GIO's parent company Suncorp Metway says childcare centres are now deemed too high risk. The hope now is that another insurer will come to Glencare's rescue. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
The players were back at their home ground today, but for fun and games, not football. Bill Peden entering the stadium now as an ex-Knight, with the hard-working Lock heading to English club Salford.
Like you say, I've had some good times over the years, and more so than the good times, probably the people I've met. I've met some lovely people, and some of the supporters and the blokes I've played with. You couldn't meet nicer people. So,
despite missing key players, it was a match that really could have gone either way until midway through the second half.
But I couldn't thank the players enough for what they've done and the week that they've had, and we've got no complaints and no excuses for.
The season not really over for Newcastle's Kangaroos, with 5 selected in the train-on squad for the coming test against New Zealand, including Steve Simpson and Tamana Tahu. Andrew Johns won't be there, but he's being kept busy with his new DVD. Ironically, his brother Matthew also sidelined after an incident involving Luke Bailey, the same player who injured Andrew.
Yeah. If he ever gets upset, I think my mum's got his number. But
needing a shoulder reconstruction, Matthew's career may now be over.
I'll probably come close to making my mind up. And now I owe it probably to the Cronulla Club to them, talk to them firsthand more, but, it's sort of hard to say, Jimmy.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. It's just not in Bill Peden's nature to talk himself up, but his many supporters, teammates both past and present, and his club weren't about to let him leave without a fitting farewell. While his deal with English club Salford fell through overnight, Bustling Billy is destined to end his playing days in the old Dart, but not before he was honoured by many tributes after his 190 first-grade games in the red and blue.
The beauty of having a player like Billy Peden in a club is that for the younger guys, if they can aspire and to be a person like Billy is and a player like he is, then I think the club's in good stead for future years.
Not a representative player, what makes Peden's achievement so special is that he made the grade as an unknown 24-year-old from Cessnock after he was backed by the Johns brothers. It's also the end for Clinton O'Brien, who's also looking to play in England, and John Morris, who's off to Parramatta, while Jared O'Doherty is destined to play overseas as well. For those who remain, it seems surgery may be their next big trip, with Matt Parsons carrying shoulder and ankle problems, while Denny Medeiros and Ben Kennedy may delay their operations on respective injuries until the pending test match. Josh Perry has penciled in an ankle reconstruction, while Clint Newton's shoulder may need repair as well.
A bright and popular teenager, Timothy Chapman, was callously left for dead on a country road in the dark of night on the 20th of December 1997. He was found lying on Rodney Road at Mount Vincent near Cessnock with serious injuries and later died in hospital. To this day, his mother mourns that no one's been brought to justice.
Yeah, people say after 4.5 years that you should be over it, but it's harder. Because Tim would have been 20 at Christmas.
Timothy had been camping with friends and had walked to the road to meet his sister. Police believe he fell asleep on the road. In February this year, the Newcastle Legal Centre, recognised for having police cases reopened, submitted a brief to the coroner after conducting its own inquiries into Timothy Chapman's death. That report raised serious questions about the initial police investigation. It's alleged police failed to interview all those involved and did not thoroughly investigate the matter. Detective Justin Devonshire was assigned to re-investigate the case 6 months ago.
We are appealing for new information, hopefully to fill in the gaps that we haven't got in relation to the circumstances.
I just want to know the truth. I want to know his last hour of his life.
Anyone with information is asked to call police on 4983 0531. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Ballet dancing has been Prudence Caldwell's life since she was only 5, but after 13 years of hard work, her dreams are starting to come true. She took out the Southern Hemisphere's richest ballet competition on the weekend at the Sydney Opera House, but the $12,000 scholarship and $3,000 cash first prize didn't come easy. Prudence had to survive a daunting selection process, beating 89 other hopefuls from Australia and New Zealand.
It was nerve-wracking, but it's such a good experience to be able to dance in front of so many people and up against other competition is really good to be recognised.
The 18-year-old is Marie Walton-Mahn's third student to win the McDonald's Ballet Scholarship. The prize will enable her to learn from the best in Europe, as well as fulfil her ambition to study in Canada. After that, a meeting with several artistic directors in New York could lead to her ultimate goal.
Just to dance as a professional dancer anywhere, just to perform. I love to perform, so just to show the world what I can do would be really good.
Colin Robinson, NBN News.
Many of the largest and most modern ships in the world regularly visit the port of Newcastle. Then there's the St. Luke. 20 years old and covered with rust, its Ukrainian owners hadn't paid the 27 men on board since March.
I asked the captain to inspect his paperwork, which included payrolls, and I discovered that there were no payroll deductions.
The International Transport Workers Federation says the St. Luke is a flag of convenience ship, registered in Malta, effectively hiding the identities of the companies that own it.
The ship owners can therefore have carte blanche to abuse their crews, not to pay them, to treat them poorly, and we've seen many, many examples of this.
After union negotiations with companies in Malta, England, the Ukraine and Australia, $400,000 in wages were finally paid today. Captain Alexander Kuzumbayev told us that the men would be paid again next month when they reach Brazil with a load of Hunter coal. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The staff shake-up is the latest in a series of cutbacks by Mission Australia. This time it's the amalgamation of 4 regional offices across New South Wales into one state office. That means 9 staff from the Lambton site will be forced to relocate, possibly to Sydney.
Hunter Mission was originally a Newcastle organisation. It was based and founded in Newcastle by Newcastle funds from church groups.
The welfare organisation, which stages fundraisers like last month's successful winter sleepout, says the restructure won't affect clients, service delivery or frontline staff. But because Mission Australia has recently withdrawn from disability services, the Australian Services Union isn't convinced. It's concerned more services will go.
We're asking for a commitment from Mission Australia that at least the services in the Hunter will remain here.
But Mission Australia denies it's about to walk away from regional or rural New South Wales. It says any savings which are made from the restructure will be reinvested back into local services. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
At the moment, it's the road to nowhere, but within 8 weeks, work will begin to construct a link from the busy Thornton Road roundabout across the swamp to Anderson Drive at Beresfield. Roads Minister Carl Scully was briefed on the project today by local member John Price and the RTA.
Well, the feds have got to do their bit on the New England Highway. We're doing our bit on the link between those two communities. So this means hundreds of members of those two communities don't have to use the New England Highway to access either Thornton or Beresfield.
The link is one aspect of an overall solution to the area's road problems. Of greater concern is the nearby New England Highway intersection with Weekleys Drive that's been the scene of fatal accidents. The federal government is responsible for this part of the road, with an interchange to cost up to $30 million. Now the state is doing its bit. It's up to the federal government to start the interchange. Paterson MP Bob Baldwin told NBN News today that once the Thornton-Beresfield link was in place, the highway interchange could proceed. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It seems the vibrant Fiesta Festival has lost none of its ability to foster ethnic understanding and entertain, despite being forced to move to the inner city amid spiralling costs such as public liability insurance.
We literally could not afford to continue in Hamilton.
Around 15,000 people turned out for what's billed as regional Australia's biggest celebration of cultural diversity.
It's lots of fun and I like seeing all the other cultures here and doing lots of dances.
But for all its success and the support of Newcastle Council, Fiesta has failed to attract a corporate sponsor for almost half of its 12-year existence.
I would hope that the sponsors would reconsider and look at maintaining the cultural life of Newcastle, because it is part of its lifeblood.
A Muslim Women's Forum was among the events staged across 7 venues. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Social Justice Commissioner Dr Bill Jonas among the guest speakers. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News. The multi-million-dollar medical centre will be built onto the eastern end of John Hunter Hospital.
The John Hunter Hospital and the new facility combined will create really a world-class centre of excellence for acute, complex healthcare.
A helicopter pad will be moved south to make way and a new car park built. The 3-storey Bone and Joint Centre is the cornerstone of Hunter Health's $264 million Newcastle strategy. When the Royal Newcastle Hospital shuts its doors in late 2005, the majority of its services, such as orthopaedic, will be moved to the centre. All 84 beds will be transferred for specialist services, with 60 extra beds for day surgery. The centre will also house 5 operating theatres and lecture theatres, along with conference rooms.
It's very important that we bring together those services to create that centre so that we can compete with Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane for technology, for expert clinicians and health professionals.
As for what will be built at the Royal, Newcastle's Lord Mayor says while discussion is needed, some opportunities are obvious.
Clearly the buildings lend themselves to anything related to tourism accommodation, conference accommodation.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
The project was not financially viable. It had been dragging on for too long, to the point where the costs just exceeded the amount of money available.
This is the logo causing all the fuss. The red and blue knight in shining armour is instantly recognisable among footy fans as the signature of Newcastle. It's registered with the National Rugby League, but the man who says he created it, John Flaherty, wants it back. He came up with the idea 16 years ago, before the Newcastle team was even admitted to the then New South Wales Rugby League competition. He says in the rush to get the team admitted, he handed the logo over to the committee without registering it.
They just grabbed the presentation and ran with it. The next time I saw it, it was in the press, which wasn't an issue at the time. I wasn't happy about it.
Now his lawyers are demanding the NRL hand the rights and royalties of the logo back, and it could be worth a packet.
A large sum, I imagine. I don't know. I wouldn't like to guess. It would hurt too much.
The NRL today issued a statement saying it would fight the challenge, and the Newcastle advertising veteran says he's ready to go the full 80 minutes.
We'll have to talk in court. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I'm going to follow it all the way through to the bitter end.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Unreal Estate showcases some of Newcastle's most well-known sites and buildings. It claims they are empty, unwanted or forgotten, offering them as a service to homeless people.
If they don't have anywhere to live, and I don't know, yeah, I think it should be alright.
But the whole Hunter Street shop is in fact a work of art.
It's a very positive work. It's a very uplifting work, and we've had a lot of interest from it. It's one of our most successful pieces for This Is Not Art.
The ironic piece is meant to be a joke.
It's an exhibition, makes people think a little, that's all.
But not everyone has been left feeling artistically inspired.
It's ridiculous and illegal because we have a building there that we've got people working on.
The work is part of the This Is Not Art festival, which today also had some well-known faces explaining the ins and outs of screen comedy. The festival features dozens of activities celebrating arts and the media.
We've got Sound Summit, we've got Radioactive, the National Young Writers Festival, Electro Fringe and the National Student Media Conference.
More than 3,000 people are expected to participate in the festival, which runs until Monday.